Hey guys, welcome back. This is episode 2 of This Might Be TMI But, and today is going to be a little different than the first episode with Claire because 1, I'm on my own, and 2, because this is a more eating disorder specific episode, but I think so many people could, sort of like hear these thoughts and like apply them to their life. But I wanted to put out a couple trigger warnings because it is a little more eating disorder focused. So I will be talking about unhealthy thoughts that I used to have, and I'll be talking about the concept of weight gain and how I sort of navigated that. So if this is not your cup of tea, or you're not in a space to hear anything about those topics, you can join us for another episode. Now that those are out of the way, the main theme of this episode is how I mentally decided to recover. People often focus on the physical aspect of recovery, especially if you're considered either overweight or underweight because of the disorder. But I think that when you finally get to a healthy weight, quote unquote, and we'll discuss that term later, none of it actually matters unless you have mentally decided to recover and you've made that mental commitment. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. So the first thing I wanted to address is, what does it mean to mentally decide to recover? And so I wanted to sort of differentiate the physical and mental aspect of recovery. Because if you're suffering from something like anorexia, like I did, and if you are like clinically underweight, then oftentimes people mostly focus on the physical aspect of recovery. You're just getting to a place where your organs are not shutting down or fighting themselves, and you're at like a healthy quote unquote BMI. But I think more important than that, even though like the physical aspect is important, you want to make sure that you're at a place where your body can function, But I think other than that, the most important thing is mentally deciding to recover. Because if that's not the case, it doesn't matter what your weight is. You still have an eating disorder. If you don't mentally decide to recover, and you're not like committed to the act of recovery, and you're not going to start tackling the thoughts that you have, then all you are is a healthy weight, but you're just as sick. I think people tie too closely the idea of BMI or the idea of weight and eating disorder thoughts. But I think that if your life is being ruled by food, if you hate yourself and you're not living life to its fullest potential because of your relationship with your body and your weight, I would say, there's a problem. You might not have a clinical eating disorder or whatever, but I think it's just as valid, and you need to address those things, and you need to make a mental commitment to recovery, because everyone deserves to live a healthy life, a quote unquote healthy life. Everyone deserves to have a good relationship with food, no matter what you look like. So now that I started talking about what it means to be healthy, I wanted to talk more about what is my definition of healthy and what was my relationship with the word. So I was going through treatment centers after treatment centers, and everyone would try to convince me in my life to go through recovery because they wanted me to be healthy. They were like, Raven, you're not healthy right now. If you recover, then you'll be healthy. And I had a really bad relationship with the word healthy, because as someone with anorexia, that's the last thing I wanted. I did not want to be healthy. I wanted to be so skinny. I wanted to be so small. I wanted to disappear. I wanted to be a piece of paper. That's how small I wanted to be, right? And so obviously I knew I wasn't healthy. And that's something I don't think that people really grasp the concept of. People do not want to be healthy. They want to be skinny, even if that means that they are unhealthy. And so, that healthy motivation didn't really help me out. But one of the first things I had to do was sort of change the focus of being healthy away from my weight and from my physical being, and start thinking of it from the mental aspect. People who are healthy do not obsess over food. People who are healthy are able to go out for drinks with a friend without freaking out about it. People who are healthy do not purge. People who are healthy are able to do things spontaneously, are able to have a spontaneous snack, and they don't have to plan out every single meal of their day. This might be frank, but I was not being healthy. I was doing all of those things. I was calorie counting every single thing I ate. I would plan out every single thing I would eat for an entire week. I was standing on a scale minimum 5 times a day to check my weight. I was purging, I was over exercising, I was doing everything like under the sun. And it didn't matter if my weight was healthy or not, because those things are unequivocally like unhealthy. Like, there's no debate. Those things are objectively unhealthy. For you to be obsessing over food, for you to not be able to live a spontaneous life, like not be able to go out to dinner with friends without having a panic attack. I used to stand in the grocery store for hours and just stare at all the options and be like, I do not know what to choose. I would look at every calorie count on every item I was going to buy at the grocery store. And now I have no idea how many calories things are before I buy them. I was going to get yogurt, actually, from the grocery store the other day. And I didn't notice it because I haven't thought about it in a while. But when I was going to get yogurt, I just picked up a yogurt that I thought looked good. Like, I liked the flavor. And I didn't look at the calories. And I haven't looked at the calories in I don't know how long. That is a healthy relationship. So, like, if you cannot go to the grocery store and just pick out an item, like, you know, there might be some deconstructing you have to do, even if you don't have a full-fledged eating disorder, right? I have been getting iced matchas from a cafe, and I always get, like, whole milk in them, but I've never bought whole milk in my entire life. And I went to the grocery store the other day, and I bought whole milk versus, like, skim, because it does not taste the same. I stopped buying those, like, diety products because they do not taste the same. They do not taste as good. Like, I buy Ben & Jerry's ice cream. I buy regular cheese. I buy regular bread. I don't buy the healthy ones because that's not what I want. Like, if I want a plain sandwich, I want the white bread. And I'm not going to buy this, like, seeded bread because it just doesn't taste the same. And if I want a salad, I'll get a salad, but I'll make sure there's protein and it won't just be lettuce and dressing. Or I won't buy the lowest calorie option anymore. And you see, those are like the mental things. It has nothing to do with weight. Those are the mental things that lets me know that I'm making progress. And to me, that is health. Health is like the fact that I can go out with my friends and I'm not freaking out the whole day about it. I'm able to, like, regulate how much I'm eating. If I'm too full, I'll stop eating. If I'm hungry, I'll eat. It doesn't matter the time of day. I'll just eat because I'm hungry, you know? And though that's what, to me, it means to be healthy. My weight doesn't matter to me anymore. You know, of course I think about it. And, you know, since I've become a healthier weight, I have weighed myself. And there have been times where I'm like, okay, I want to lose a couple pounds because I, you know, don't feel as good in my body as I used to, but the relationship is completely different. I am not sent into a complete spiral every time I see my weight, and I'm able to go days without weighing myself, which I never used to be able to do. Before, every time I had to weigh myself, I would weigh myself every single day. Now I'm like, okay, I could go a couple weeks without weighing myself. Those are the, and I don't want to act like I'm perfect, you know what I mean? I still have, like, unhealthy habits that I do occasionally, or like, but when I tell you, it's nowhere near the magnitude that I used to have it. And if you're listening to this podcast and you're like, damn, I used to do those things, or I do those things, like, you do a collection of them, I think that you can start trying to tackle some of those issues, because you deserve to live like a mentally and physically healthy life. So what changed my mind? What made me change my mind about, like, health, and what made me change my mind and actually be like, I want to recover? Long story short, I had exhausted, like, every option of not recovering. I used to use school as an excuse, like, oh, I'm too busy, I don't have time to think about recovering. I would compare myself to every person I came across, and I just didn't want to recover. Like, for 4 years, I didn't want to. Sure, I got up to a healthy weight multiple times throughout that process, but because I didn't want to recover, I would just relapse. Like, I would go to treatment, gain the weight, leave, and relapse. And basically, after I left school and I was back home my freshman year, I couldn't go back to school unless I was I was deemed healthy by the treatment center or by someone. And COVID had happened, and I think because the world stopped, I finally had to confront all of these emotions I was like repressing. Because the world stopped and we were isolated, I had to really confront the fact that I had no friends, which was something I sort of put on the back burner. You know what I mean? I had to confront the fact that I don't know when life is going to return to normal, and I have done nothing that I thought I would have done. Sure, I got into the school I wanted, but I never had any of the high school experiences. I never went on spontaneous trips with my friends. I didn't have a huge friend group. All of my memories were like clouded by all of this like eating disorder stuff, like my prom, for example. I just remember like taking pictures and all of that stuff and being like, I'm not close to anyone here. Sure, they're my friends, quote unquote, they're nice to me, but like I don't have any close friends other than like the one I went to prom with, but she was like a year older. I remember having to confront the fact that like no one knows who I am. No one truly knows me. Like they know the activities I do, sure. They know that I left school to go to treatment, sure. But no one like knows me, and I don't know myself. I know nothing about myself. And all I could think about during prom was like how I looked in my dress. I wasn't excited. Like I wasn't happy. During graduation, I wasn't happy. I was happy it was over, but I wasn't like happy about all the memories that I had made and all the friends I had made and all the experiences I went through. Like I wasn't happy about any of that, and I think that's so sad. And I really had to confront that during COVID. And I had to confront the fact that like, damn, I like sort of fucked up my freshman year of college. I had become like sort of friends with these people, but you know, when I left, like I got some really mean messages, and I felt really isolated from them, and I didn't know what my life was going to be like when I returned. And it was just so much happened to me emotionally because of my eating disorder that I all of a sudden had to confront, because I didn't know when life was going to return back. I sort of thought about something this like weird therapist I was seeing at some point in high school. She said to me, she was a very interesting, her name was like Joan or something. Shout out to Joan. But I remember sitting in her office and we were talking about my eating disorder and all of that. And she was like, why don't you just give recovery a try? Like, really commit to it. She said to me, well, if you recover and you don't like it, you don't like what your life looks like, you can relapse. You're good at it. Like, you're good at restricting. You're good at, like, the eating disorder. She was like, just give it a try. And I, like, that sounds really harsh, and that might not be an orthodox way of going about things, because you're not supposed to encourage people to relapse. But that really, like, broke through to me. Like, yeah, why don't I just give it a try? And if I hate it, it didn't take me that long to get sick in the first place. I could just do it again. And, you know, after I exhausted all these options, after I hit my rock bottom, I was like, okay, why not? Like, why not do what Joan said? Like, why not just try it? And so it was like a place of mental exhaustion that pushed me into recovery, where I just didn't have time. I just couldn't fight it anymore. I just couldn't fight all the thoughts anymore. Like, I couldn't keep fighting this like physical battle. Like, my eating disorder made me so weak. Like, I could barely walk. Like, I was always dizzy. Every time I had to ride the train, I would be praying, because I was praying for a seat, because I could like not stand up that long. Like, it was so bad, and that caused like so much mental fatigue. And I was just like, okay, why not just try to recover? I have this period of time, who knows how long lockdown will happen, and I can just try this whole recovery thing, and if I don't like it, I'll just do what Joan says and I'll relapse. So that's what I did. I made a vision board, which sounds really cheesy, but I made a vision board of like what I wanted my life to look like. I got a jar and I wrote down all of my fear foods on these pieces of paper, and I would like pick out one and I would try to eat it. I would order in like a lot of DoorDash. I would cook food, like all that stuff. and I would like slowly work through it. And I don't want people to think that this was like an easy process at all. Like, there were so many times that like I would do behaviors, like I would purge or I would do whatever after I ate, but eventually like those behaviors like subsided, like they decreased. And then at a point it was like, I don't remember the last time I did it. Like, I don't remember the last time I purged. And at first I would eat these like fear foods and I would be so scared of them, and now I eat them on a regular basis, which is crazy. Like, I never in a million years thought I would be able to do it. And how did I do it? I would do like systematic desensitization, which is like a therapy modality, I think in dialectical behavioral therapy, something like that, where basically you would like work your way up to the scary thing. So like, for example, if I wanted to eat like some high calorie item or whatever, because those were most of my fear foods, I would eat like a diet version first, sort of get rid of that aversion to the item, and then I would like work my way up to being able to eat the restaurant version or like the store-bought version. I would try to eat out as much as I could, like order as much food out from restaurants as I could, because that was a huge fear of mine, was eating food from restaurants, because I knew that was something I wanted to do. That was something I did my whole life as a kid. Like, I loved eating out at restaurants, and because of my eating disorder, I was so terrified of it that was like a huge priority for me. Another priority of mine was being able to like drink drinks, like fun drinks. And so I worked through that. Or there were so many things that I was afraid of, but every day, if you start tackling things, it becomes easier and easier. I would journal a lot. I would cry a lot. I would distract myself with movies. But really, that like isolated time in quarantine gave me time to like hibernate and really deal with that difficulty without the outside distractions of the world. And so in a way, I was really grateful for the isolation that quarantine gave me, because I was no longer afraid of like people seeing me gain weight in real time. And so how did I get through the weight gain period, like that anxiety of weight gain? Well, something that helped was the fact that I was in quarantine, and because no one sees you, you know, you're not as conscious about the way that you look. Also, I got rid of my scale. I got rid of all the mirrors in my room, and I would purposefully like not look at mirrors. That was something I trained myself to do. I would wear really loose clothing. I had an eating disorder outfit that I would wear, which was like leggings and like an oversized sweater from Target. And I would wear something like that every single day, because the regularity, like the looseness, allowed me to like gain weight and not really feel it as much. And then it was just like one less thing I really had to worry about. And something I dealt a lot with was like the discomfort of eating a lot of food. So what I would do is I would wear a heat pack when my stomach hurt. I would drink like hot tea, and I would like do these little stomach massages on myself, where I like put my hand into a fist and then I would put it on my stomach and move it in a clockwise motion. And that sort of helped with like digestion and stuff like that. I took like fiber supplements to sort of help with that as well. A lot of it is just discomfort you have to learn to deal with. You know, recovery is going to be uncomfortable. But, you know, after I sort of gained the weight and I started tackling all these mental fears, things gradually got better. Another thing that helped was decentering beauty as my contribution to the world. A huge reason why I developed an eating disorder is because I thought that beauty would equate to social capital. Beauty would equate to people wanting to date me. I thought that, you know, if my body looked a certain way, then I would like automatically become a better person, which seems like weird, but I think a huge part of my recovery was sort of decentering my beauty and trying to center my personality and trying to develop my personality more than I was focusing on my weight and the way that I looked. I developed interests, and I developed passions, and I developed things I wanted to do in my life that had nothing to do with the way that I looked. I began doing those things. Like, I began doing the research that I was dreaming of. I started focusing, once I was admitted back to school, I started focusing on like singing. I joined an a cappella group, and I joined a sorority because I was like, this is a good way to make friends that isn't really centered on the way that I look. I started doing all of these activities, and it gave me so much more purpose than my eating disorder did. I was able to make friends without my beauty being a factor in whether or not I made friends, if that makes sense. Through those things, I gained more confidence. And through gaining more confidence, I think that confidence is what makes someone beautiful. Like, someone's personality is what makes someone beautiful. Sure, someone can have like a pretty face or like a nice body, but if their personality is absolute like shit, it doesn't mean anything. If you have nothing to contribute to the world, it doesn't matter what you look like, in my eyes. And I think that sort of mindset attracted people to me, because I no longer was this like super fragile, super conscious, like self-conscious, self-deprecating, self-hating person. And people in high school knew that I was like that. Like, I was a super self-hating, like, I did not care about myself. Like, I was so insecure, and it radiated through every pore. So even though I was skinny, even though I looked the way that like I wanted to, it didn't matter, because no one wanted to be my friend, because I had nothing to talk about. I had no interest. I had nothing to contribute. Versus, when I gained the weight and I went back to college, I had interest. I had things I could talk about. I used quarantine to dive back into like childhood interests. I started building like miniature dollhouses. I was just doing random stuff to figure out what I liked. Like, I created like goals for my life that had nothing to do with the way that I looked. I decided, okay, I want to travel. Like, I want to learn this. I want to learn that. And then when I finally got healthy, people began seeing that I was like a more confident person, that I started to love myself, because I think an eating disorder is truly a form of like self-hatred. And even if you get to your goal weight, you will not be happy. And that's something that like I really want to emphasize. Even if you get down to that weight you set for yourself, that will not make you happy. That won't solve all the mental issues, all the self-confidence issues you have. You will not look in the mirror one day and all of a sudden be like, and everything in the world will be fixed. That's not how it's going to work. Because if the way that you got down to that weight is through self-hatred, that self-hatred is still going to remain. You will have conditioned yourself to nitpick everything about yourself. You will have conditioned yourself to be afraid of a bunch of foods, about interacting with like people, about going to restaurants, about all of this stuff. So even if you're at that weight, those thoughts still remain. And so at the end of the day, like, you're just as miserable, but you're in a smaller body. And no one wants to be friends with a miserable person. You know what I mean? Like, no one wants to be friends with someone who hates themselves. And so that's sort of how I worked through a lot of the mental difficulties I was having with my eating disorder. It's amazing to get to a point where people are like, really? You went through that? And I think like it's easy to take that as an offense, but like I don't really take it as an offense. I take it as like I've done so much mental and physical growth that like the old me is not even recognizable anymore. And recently I tried to think back like, oh my gosh, like how many calories are in that item? And I don't remember. And that is such like a surprising feat. The fact that I do not remember how many calories are in like specific items. Because that used to rule my life. Or the fact that, I can go to the grocery store and not really care. Like, I don't care about the calories of the items. I just look at the items and I'm like, does this look good? Is this affordable? Sort of thing. And just life has so much more to offer when you're not hyper focused on the way that you look. And I just want to encourage people, like, start examining your relationship with your body and whether or not you equate the way that your body looks to your value in society, because those things are not the same. and start to examine your relationship with food and your thoughts around food, and if those thoughts limit your ability to live your life. Like, examine your ideal life versus what you're living now, and if there are some incongruencies, start to tackle them, because everyone deserves to love themselves. It doesn't matter what you look like. Everyone deserves to love themselves. And yeah, I hope that this honesty hour was helpful. It's not even an hour, but I hope that this honesty period was helpful and that you gain something from this, because I think that the mental part is the hardest part. So yeah, thanks for listening. Catch you next week. Bye.